Hello and welcome to the complete guide to AQA A-level chemistry. What we're going to do in this video is give us a very brief and, well, essentially a very brief but also quite detailed overview of the chemistry A-level for AQA, what kind of things you're going to be taught, the kind of content that you're going to be studying, the kind of assessment that you're going to be doing, the kind of exams you will be doing, and what will be asked in each of those exams, and then also the relevance of things such as practical experimentation as well. So this is our first lesson or our first video for AQA A-level chemistry, and this provides us a complete guide to the subject and the study of A-level chemistry for those students who are taking AQA. As I've said, we are going to be talking about the subject content, we're going to talk about the methods of assessment, as well as the requirements for your knowledge and understanding of practical experimentation and the ways in which your participation in practical experimentation is going to be influential in your final grade in terms of your knowledge and experience of those said experiments. So we're going to begin just by giving you a very brief overview of the subject content for A-level chemistry for AQA. Now, the way it is split for the AQA module is you will have a series of topics that you will study for the AS level, and then there will be a series of topics that are applicable to the full A-level only. And because of the nature of the linear A-level system, if you go through and you only do 1 year of A-level chemistry, you only take the AS level, then you are only going to study the first half of the content and you'll only be tested on the first half of the content. And then if you decide to take the full A-level, take it all the way to the full 2 years, then you will be tested on the entirety of the content. You will be tested on the entire A-level from start to finish. Now, this differs from how the A-levels used to work back in the day before 2016, because before 2016 you would be tested on one half of a subject in the first year, and then you'd be tested on all of the other half of the subject in the second year. When the linear system, you will be tested on everything at the end of the 2 years, so long as you take the full A-level. So the way in which it is split is that we will have a series of topics that I will call in this video some core topics, which are for the AS level as well as the A-level, and then there will be the additional topics which are for the A-level only. And from the broad perspective of chemistry specifically, you will be studying 3 main topics that will then be split into a number of subtopics. So you'll begin by doing physical chemistry, you will then do inorganic chemistry, and then you will do organic chemistry. So all of the subject, all of the content for the full A-level for AQA can be split into these 3 main, quite broad topics. And beginning with physical chemistry, you will examine a number of very key preliminary and foundational concepts. So the basics and the sort of introductory concepts to A-level chemistry will be covered in the physical chemistry section. You'll be doing things like talking about atomic structure, the difference between atoms and isotopes, or elements and isotopes of elements and ions. You'll do substances and amounts, so things like moles, percentage yield, etc., as well as the types of chemical bonds and chemical reactions that take place. So you will cover the subject relating to ionic bonding, covalent bonding, hydrogen bonding, etc. But you will also examine a number of other topics as well. You will cover the subject of energetics, kinetics, as well as chemical equilibria, and then you will also do redox reactions, so reduction and oxidation reactions. And for those who take the full A-level, you will also study an additional few topics for physical chemistry as well. So all of the ones that we've just seen here, they are the AS level topics. And then you have some additional topics for the A-level, which include thermodynamics, rate equations, as well as equilibrium constants and electrode potentials. And then finally, the last of the physical chemistry relates to acids and bases and the chemistry of acids and bases. So this is the physical chemistry that you will study for AQA across the entire A-level. So if you are studying just the AS level, you will talk about atomic structure, substances, amounts of a substance, chemical bonds, energetics, kinetics, chemical equilibria, and redox reactions. And then those who take the additional year to do the full A-level will also then add to this roster of knowledge. You would also talk about thermodynamics, rate equations, equilibrium constants, electropotentials, and acids and bases. So that's physical chemistry. Next, you will study inorganic chemistry. And just like with physical chemistry, inorganic chemistry will cover a number of core themes. I'm calling them core themes. And then you will also have the additional content, which is for the full A level. And I've split them accordingly on this slide. So for the core themes, for the AS and the A level together, you will study periodicity. You will talk about alkaline earth metals, halogens, and then when we talk about the A level, only the additional content you will study period 3 elements, transition metals, and reactions of ions in aqueous solutions. So not as much actual content in terms of compare that to physical chemistry when it comes to inorganic chemistry, but both of these are going to be overshadowed by the amount of content you're going to study when you do organic chemistry. And so what organic chemistry is essentially the chemistry of carbon and the ways in which we can manipulate carbon, and we can create molecules out of carbon to develop all of these different organic molecules. And essentially this is where all of life is derived. This topic will have the most depth in terms of content, so there'll be the most topics to cover within organic chemistry. But it should be noted that the concept of splitting these and delineating these topics so discriminatory in this kind of way sort of misses the fact that when you do organic chemistry and when you do inorganic chemistry, you're also going to be relying on the knowledge and information and the understanding that you have collected when you did physical chemistry. So sort of physical chemistry is the study of how to essentially do the things that we do within organic and inorganic chemistry. So we sort of you should see them as 3 distinct topics, but you should also be reticent of the fact that there will be a lot of overplay and interconnection between each of them. So when it comes to organic chemistry, you will have again the core AS and A level topics, which include a general introduction to organic chemistry, the study of alkanes, the study of halogen alkanes, the study of alkenes. So we're talking about the different the number of bonds within when it comes to single and double bonds between alkanes and alkenes. And then you will talk about different groups within alkanes and alkenes, so things like alcohol. And then we will then examine how you go about doing things within organic chemistry relating to analysis of chemical compounds. This relates to organic analysis. And then when we talk about the additional content, you will talk about optical isomerism, aldehydes and ketones, carboxylic acids and their derivatives, aromatic chemistry, amines, polymers, and amino acids, proteins, and DNA, as well as organic synthesis, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, and chromatography as well. So, as I've said, there is a lot of content for organic chemistry. A lot of it fits into this sort of additional topic, additional series of topics when we look at all of these different things like amino acids and polymers and organic synthesis and carboxylic acids, etc., etc. But that is collectively the content that you are going to study for A-level chemistry for AQA. Now, how is it going to be assessed? How are we splitting the exams up in terms of the assessment? Well, just like with our A-level biology video, we can split the methods of assessment between the AS level, the 1-year course, and the full 2-year A-level as well. So let's just begin with the AS level assessments and the way you're assessed if you are only taking a single year of A-level chemistry. At AS, you will sit 2 exams. There'll be a paper 1 exam and there'll be a paper 2 exam. Now, the exams are split 50-50, and in paper 1, you will be asked questions pertaining to the AS level inorganic chemistry topics, so the core topics for inorganic chemistry, as well as any of the physical chemistry topics that are relevant to inorganic chemistry. Now, the specification specifically picks out the topics from the physical chemistry section that will be relevant to paper 1, but essentially what it is the physical chemistry topics that are relevant to inorganic chemistry, and that's what you'll study in paper 1. Paper 2 will be very similar, but instead of being asked questions relating to inorganic chemistry, you will be asked questions pertaining to organic chemistry. And again, you will be asked questions about organic chemistry from the core topics, as well as any physical chemistry topics that are relevant to organic chemistry specifically. So what you should really take away from this fact is when you are studying organic and inorganic chemistry, you should always be reticent to the fact that there are going to be topics within the physical chemistry module, the physical chemistry topic that are going to be relevant to the questions that you're asked in the other two modules. So there's always a bit of a mixture that and a lot of crossover between these topics. Both papers will be an hour and a half. Both will be 80 marks each, and they will both represent 50% of your final grade. So one will represent one half and one will represent the other half. In terms of the questions that you're going to be asked in the assessment for AS, well, you'll have 65 marks in both exams that will be dedicated to a series of both long answer and short answer questions, the kind of exam questions that you would be familiar with or you should be familiar with from GCSE, just the general GCSE science type of questions. So you might have some 1 mark questions, you might have some 6 mark questions, etc., etc., some calculations, some explanations, etc. again. And then you'll also have 15 marks that are dedicated to a series of multiple choice questions where you are given either a statement or you're given just a question, and you are given a series of answers, one of which is the correct answer for that particular question. Now, you might be thinking that multiple choice questions, that seems quite nice for A-level sciences. You could not be more wrong. Multiple choice questions are very, very difficult for A-level sciences because for some reason they seem to present these multiple choice questions in such a way as to make you believe that all of them could be the right answer, which is quite annoying in a lot of cases. So yeah, be careful when it comes to revising. If you think, oh, I don't need to revise the multiple choice questions because they're very easy. The answers are given. I just have to pick the right answer. You could not be more wrong. They are actually quite difficult to do. When it comes to the assessment for the full A-level, instead of 2 exams, you will sit 3 exams, paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3. In paper 1, you'll be asked questions related to anything from the inorganic chemistry topic for either AS or A2, so either the core content or the additional content as well as any physical chemistry topics that are relevant. So instead of just revising for the AS, you'll be revising for the full A level, and you'll be revising inorganic chemistry as well as physical chemistry topics that are relevant to inorganic chemistry. Paper 2, you'll be asked any questions from the whole A-level related to organic chemistry, as well as any physical chemistry topics that are relevant to organic chemistry. And then finally, paper 3 will be essentially asked, you could be asked anything from any part of the A-level as a whole. So you'll be asked essentially anything. Now, you might be quite worried about the paper 3 because that is a whole host of content that you're going to have to revise, but you should obviously remember that by the time it comes round to revising for paper 3 specifically, you will already have done paper 1 and 2, so you will already have been familiar with all the content from paper 1, all the content from paper 2, and paper 3 is just essentially a culmination of the two the topics from paper 1 and paper 2. Now, the difference, though, between paper 3 and paper 1 and 2 is the types of questions that you'll be asked in paper 3 compared to the other two. All 3 exams will be 2 hours long, and paper 1 and 2 will be 35% of your A-level respectively, so they will both represent 35% each, and then the final 30% will be paper 3. Now, when it comes to the kind of questions that you're asked in paper 1 and 2, they are the same kind of questions respectively between the first 2 papers. You will have 105 marks that are dedicated to a series of long and short answer questions. So again, you'll have a series of questions that are quite similar or reminiscent of the GCSE science questions that you were asked when you sat your GCSEs. So you'll have some short answer questions, you might have some 1 mark definition or 1 mark answer questions, and then maybe some longer questions or calculation questions, etc., etc. Paper 3, however, will be very, very different in terms of the kinds of questions you're asked. So, as I've said, the content that you will cover is all of the content for the whole A-level, but 40 marks of paper 3 will be dedicated to questions that pertain to techniques in practical experimentation, as well as your ability to analyze and course out data. So, be able to explain and analyze and understand data analysis that you are given. So, we will talk about the role and the importance of practical experimentation in a minute, but should know that for paper 3, 40 marks will relate to these kinds of questions that are less theoretical in nature. They're less about the theory and the chemistry behind the theory, and they are more focusing on some of the practical techniques and the ways in which you use and understand data. You will have 20 marks that are dedicated to questions related to anything from the A level. So again, just general short and long answer questions that could be from anything. They could be from physical chemistry, organic or inorganic. And then finally, you will have 30 marks at the end. 30 marks at the end dedicated to a series of multiple choice questions. Again, don't think that you shouldn't revise multiple choice questions because they are very difficult. So there we go for the structure of assessment for the 3 papers for the 4 A level. Finally, I just want to give a brief overview of the importance and the inclusion of practical experiments within the A level itself. So throughout your time studying the A level, depending on if you do 1 year or 2 years, you will have a series of different practical experiments that you'll have to do. Now, you will not be tested on the practical experiments themselves when you are doing the A level. Your A level grade will come and will be only a determination of how you perform in the exams. So the only things you have to worry about in terms of getting a grade at A level is the exams. The exams are the only thing you will be assessed on. However, what is important to note is that throughout the exams, you will be asked questions that relate to your knowledge of the relevant practical experiments. So while you'll be asked questions related to physical chemistry or organic or inorganic chemistry, some of those questions, in fact 15% of those questions, will be dedicated to the organic or inorganic or physical chemistry, but the actual practical applications and the ways in which you should know and understand experiments. So you have to do the experiments to understand this 15% of the content. Now, there will also be a separate endorsement of practical skills that will be taken alongside the A level. Now, this is something that is not assessed in the exams, but is assessed upon direct observation from teachers. But essentially, when you do the A level exams, you'll be asked questions that only you will know if you have either done the experiments, or if you didn't have time to do the experiments, you have a deep and detailed understanding of how the experiments work. So that's important to remember, that practical experiments is something that is very important, as you would probably imagine, for the obtaining of a good grade in A-level chemistry. Now, at A level, at the full A level, there are 12 broad experiments that are required to have been partaken. So you will have to do, for example, acid-base titrations, very simple acid-base titrations. They're quite easy to do. Measurements of enthalpy changes, rates of reactions in relation to changes in temperature. You will have reactions to identify cations and anions. You'll have distillation experiments that you can do, tests for alcohols, aldehydes, alkenes, and carboxylic acids. So tests to identify all of these different organic compounds. Measuring rates of reactions and how other things impact rates of reactions. The measurement of EMF, of an electrochemical cells. You'll also have to do some acid-base reactions and the ways in which acid-base reactions changes the pH of a particular substance, the preparation of pure organic solids and liquids, the identification of transition metals using basic test tube experimentation, and then also thin layer chromatography as well. So those are the general experiments that you will do, and you'll be questioned on these experiments within the exam and within the context of the particular topic that these relate to. So some of these relate to physical chemistry, some of these relate to inorganic chemistry, and some of these relate to organic chemistry. Now, the way in which we're going to teach the content on the Science Academy is as follows. We are going to cover all of the topics in big chunks. So we're going to start with physical chemistry, we'll then do inorganic chemistry, and then we will finish with organic chemistry. And we will do the full content for each of these one at a time. So we will do all of the core and additional content for physical chemistry first, covering all that first, and then we'll cover all the inorganic chemistry and then cover all of the organic chemistry. Now, the way in which the playlists are going to work is we're going to have playlists for the whole AQA A level, so all of the videos that we can that you can have, as well as playlists for individual modules, so for the individual 3 topics. And the way in which, if you are doing, for example, OCR or EdXL A-level chemistry, is that because the content that you cover is essentially the same across all 3 A levels, but with some very slight variation, we will also make playlists for those that follow along the lines of their specifications as well. So we should have a lot of content that's good for everyone, but it should just be noted that the process in which we are teaching and the subjects that we're going to teach will run along the lines of the AQA A-level chemistry topic.